welcome to the deep dive. So today we're looking into a really unsettling story. It's about a man who really tried, to escape his past, changed his name, his whole identity.
Right, attempted a complete fresh start.
But, what happens when that darkness you're running from, well, what if it's just fundamentally part of you?
Exactly. And that's what we're digging into today. We're tracking essentially two lives here in one person.
Two lives?
Yeah. Born Adolph James Rowe Jr., Jimmy, mostly known as Jimmy.
Okay.
Then later, he formally, legally becomes Cesar Francesco Barone. And our sources, they really meticulously detail this chilling transformation.
Showing how this history of aggression, often unpunished aggression, just escalated.
And evolved into this short but really terrifying career as one of Oregon's most violent criminals.
Yeah, what immediately jumps out looking at the sources is just the name itself, Cesar Francesco Barone.
Right, it's so dramatic.
It really is. Compared to Jimmy Road, a sort of small-time Florida thug, he deliberately picked this name. It sounds operatic, almost glamorous.
Exotic, yeah. A total contrast to the reality of the man.
And it was clearly meant to be this sophisticated veneer, wasn't it? To cover up something pretty toxic underneath.
Oh, absolutely. Purely a mask. And, to understand why that mask eventually crumbled, we really have to go back to the beginning, to Jimmy Rowe.
Okay, so where does that start?
He was born in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, December 1960. And his early life, it sounds like it was pre-fractured right away.
How so?
Well, his mother left when he was only 3. Then his parents divorced. He ended up living with his father and his stepmother, a woman named Brenda.
And the warning signs?
Yeah.
They weren't subtle, were they? The sources say they were immediate and extreme.
No, not subtle at all.
I mean, expelled from kindergarten. You just don't hear that often.
Almost unheard of. Yeah, it points to something serious right away. And he quickly got this reputation for just profound aggression.
Bullying, apparently brandishing knives.
Flicking cigarettes at people, stealing toys. It wasn't just mischief. The sources suggest he seemed to get actual pleasure from intimidating others.
And what's really crucial here, reading through this, is that while the violence was obvious, the calls for help just went nowhere.
That's right. His stepmother, Brenda, she apparently saw it clearly. She described him as different, and she repeatedly tried to get him psychiatric help. She knew his behavior was way beyond, typical kid stuff. It was escalating.
Was it harder back then in the 60s, 70s to get that kind of help? Or was it more a failure of the adults around him to grasp the danger?
Probably a bit of both, unfortunately. Resources might have been scarcer or maybe less understood. But in Jimmy's case, it really feels like the severity was just constantly downplayed.
Excuses acting out.
Exactly. And the result, he learned pretty quick that there weren't many real consequences for what he did.
So by his teens?
By his teens, he'd moved on to serious stuff. Heavy drug use, marijuana, LSD, cocaine, burglaries, assaults, petty theft.
And crucially, this is where the sources note a really focused hostility towards women starting to emerge.
Yes, that becomes a terrible pattern. And there are 2 incidents in his youth that the sources highlight as, really critical turning points. They show how ingrained that violence already was.
The first one being that awful attack on his stepmother, Brenda, after she'd split from his father.
That's the one. He didn't just attack her, he forced himself on her, tried to strangle her. And the chilling part, he told her he'd fantasized about doing it for years.
Wow. So not impulsive.
Planned.
Rooted in control, hostility, but because it was seen as a sort of private family matter.
It didn't trigger the alarm bells it should have. No major legal or psychological intervention.
Precisely. Which is terrifying in hindsight.
And then, just a bit later, when he was 15, the crime against his neighbor, Alice Stock, 70 years old.
Yeah. He breaks in, threatens her with a knife, demands she undress.
Yeah.
He actually got arrested for that one.
But only spent 2 months in juvie. It's just 2 months. And the aftermath of that incident is, it's deeply disturbing and technically still unsolved.
What happened?
Not long after Jimmy got out, Alice Stock was found dead. She'd been beaten severely, violated, lifeless in her home.
And Jimmy was the suspect.
The prime suspect. Everyone suspected him, but the evidence apparently wasn't strong enough back then to make the charges stick.
So the case collapsed.
It did,
Yeah.
leaving this really dark cloud of suspicion hanging over him, something that followed him for decades.
And his, luck, if you can call it that, it held again, didn't it? Same year, he attacks his own grandmother.
His grandmother, Mattie Marino, also in her 70s.
He beat her with fists and a rolling pin, choked her, robbed her.
Yes, and even though she clearly identified him as her attacker,
he was acquitted. In court.
Acquitted, just let go. And you have to think about the psychological impact of that.
Oh, absolutely.
3 incredibly violent attacks on women, his stepmother, his neighbor, his grandmother, and he walks away from all 3, essentially consequence-free in the eyes of the law.
It must have given him this sense of being untouchable.
A profound sense of invincibility, yeah. If he could get away with nearly killing his own grandmother, what couldn't he get away with?
That probably just paved the way for everything that came later. No fear of consequences.
It allowed the violence to just grow exponentially. Consequences became, optional in his mind.
Okay, so that takes us up to about 1980.
Yeah.
And the next chapter is state prison.
Right. He finally does get locked up, but for burglaries and assaults, not the earlier attacks we mentioned.
But being behind bars didn't stop the aggression.
Not at all. He kept racking up offenses inside, including, notably, an attempted assault on a female corrections officer.
And that led to a transfer.
Yeah, that got him moved to Florida State Prison in Stark, a much tougher facility.
Stark. For people who follow true crime, that name rings a bell, doesn't it?
It does. It housed some of Florida's most infamous offenders, including, at the time, Ted Bundy.
Wow. So was there direct contact?
Well, the sources say the association was indirect. They were in the same prison. But the key thing is that Barone, later on, reportedly started to boast about it.
Boasting. About Bundy.
Yeah, about admiring him, maybe even studying him. Whether he actually spoke to Bundy or just made it up, the boast itself is telling.
It shows where his head was at. He's starting to craft this identity around extreme violence, maybe even seeking that kind of dark fame.
Exactly. He's internalizing the mindset of a high-profile serial killer.
Yeah. He gets released in 1987, and this is when the big rebrand happens.
This is it. He leaves Florida, moves clear across the country to Washington State.
And legally becomes...
Cesar Francesco Barone.
He gets married too, right? To Kathy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Trying to build this whole respectable sort of exotic-sounding life. Bury Jimmy Road for good.
Trying to erase the name, the record, everything.
And his next move is maybe the most audacious part of this attempted reinvention.
Which was?
1989, he enlists in the U.S. Army.
Joins the Army with his record.
Well, that's the thing. It seems they didn't know initially. And this period, it's fascinating because it shows how the facade almost worked for a little while.
What do you mean?
Surprisingly, he actually performed well as a soldier initially. He was apparently skilled with weapons, even got some commendations.
So on the surface, a good soldier.
On the surface, yeah. He even later made this unconfirmed claim about having killed during the U.S. invasion of Panama.
Which, true or not, again shows him wanting to paint himself as this lethal but legitimate figure.
Right. The military structure might have given him a channel for that aggression, that need for control and validation.
But the core Jimmy Road, that didn't go away.
Not one bit. And it surfaced in the way it always did for him.
Towards women.
Violence and sexual deviancy towards women. His Army career imploded pretty quickly when he was accused of exposing himself to a female officer.
Ah, and once they looked into that.
Once his superiors started digging because of that incident, they uncovered the whole backstory. The criminal past, the name change, the facade just crumbled.
And he was discharged.
Promptly kicked out. That structure, that arguably legitimate outlet for his aggression, was gone.
And what happens when that structure disappears?
The violence comes roaring back immediately, and this time with deadly results. He and his wife, Kathy, they settled down in Hillsboro, Oregon, near Portland.
Trying to start that quiet suburban life again, outwardly.
Outwardly, yes. But if you connect the dots back to his youth, losing that structure, combined with that sense of invincibility he got from those earlier acquittals.
And the focused hostility towards women.
It was a lethal combination. The Oregon Reign of Terror, as it's sometimes called, kicked off almost as soon as she arrived.
Let's walk through the confirmed killings, because the speed and the brutality here are just staggering.
They really are. The first confirmed victim was Margaret Schmidt, 61 years old, April 1991.
Found in her home in Hillsboro.
Yes, sexually assaulted and strangled. Then, after a bit of a gap, though, investigators suspect other crimes occurred. The violence erupts again, very publicly, in October 1992.
Martha Bryant.
Martha Bryant, 41. A nurse midwife. Her car veered off the road and he dragged her out, assaulted her, and then shot her in the head. Close range.
Just brutal. Execution style. That must have terrified the commuter.
Oh, it sent shockwaves, absolutely.
And the spree just kept going. December 1992.
Chanty Woodman. She was only 23, Kidnapped, assaulted, and then shot dead along a highway.
What's so disturbing here, looking at the victims, Margaret Schmidt, 61, Martha Bryant, 41, Chanty Woodman, 23, there's no single type, is there?
No consistent victim profile. They varied quite a bit in age, background. It suggests he wasn't hunting a specific type.
More like opportunity.
Yeah.
And just this generalized rage.
It seems like it was opportunity driven by this deep-seated hunger for domination and violence, as one source put it.
Chilling. And then the final confirmed fatal attack came just a month later, January 1993.
Betty Lou Williams, 51 years old. In her Portland apartment, he assaulted her, but she tragically died of a heart attack during the assault itself.
But this last horrific crime, this was the one where he finally slipped up.
Yes. He fled the Williams apartment, apparently in a panic, and he left something crucial behind.
The gun.
She left the gun. Ballistics tests quickly linked that firearm directly to the murder of Chanty Woodman the month before.
So the small-time criminal who thought he was invincible
Finally made a mistake big enough for investigators to connect the dots. It broke the case wide open.
Barone was arrested soon after, February 1993.
Yes. And detectives, they moved fast. They built a really solid case. Ballistics, DNA evidence, which was becoming more prevalent then, and importantly, testimony from survivors of his other non-fatal attacks in Oregon.
What was his demeanor like when they caught him?
Cold. Detached. That's how it's described. He denied the murders, apparently, though he might have admitted to some assaults, but zero remorse. Absolutely none.
And when the trial came around in 1995, his past couldn't stay hidden, could it?
No way. Cesar Barone couldn't escape Jimmy Road in court. His whole history, the attacks on his stepmother, the suspicion around Alice Stock's death, beating his grandmother, it all came out.
To show the pattern, the depth of the pathology.
Exactly. It painted a picture of a lifetime of escalating aggression, finally culminating in these murders.
In a sense.
Death sentence for the 3 murders, Schmidt, Bryant, and Woodman, and an additional 89 years for the assault that led to Betty Williams' death.
So he ends up on death row.
Over 14 years on death row at Oregon State Penitentiary.
And during that time, did investigators think there were more victims?
Oh, they strongly suspected it, especially in that period between his release from Florida prison in '87 and the first confirmed Oregon murder in '91, when he was moving around changing his name.
Did they try to get him to talk?
Repeatedly. Detectives visited him over the years, hoping for confessions, hoping to bring closure to other families whose cases might fit his pattern.
But he wouldn't talk.
He remained completely silent about any other potential crimes. It was like his final act of control.
And then he died in prison?
He did. Died of natural causes, age 49, on Christmas Eve, 2009.
Christmas Eve. Wow.
And even then, on his deathbed, detectives made one last visit, one final attempt.
Any luck?
No. He refused to speak. Died taking all his secrets with him, ensuring that the full scope of his violence would probably never be known.
So when you pull back and look at this whole story,
Yeah.
what's the real takeaway? It's more than just a list of crimes, isn't it?
Oh, much more. It's a really profound and frankly chilling look at how superficial changes just don't work when the core problem runs so deep.
He tried the ultimate reinvention. New name, new state, the military.
All these external things. He tried to present himself as Cesar Barone, this disciplined, maybe even exotic figure, but the sources just hammer home the point. You can't bury who you fundamentally are if the underlying issues, the pathology, isn't addressed.
He couldn't escape Jimmy Road.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Underneath the fancy name and the uniform, he was still that aggressive, angry, unrepentant kid who got expelled from kindergarten. His story is just a terrifying example of how those early failures, the ignored pleas for help, the acquittals, how they can create a monster who genuinely believes he's untouchable.
And that pattern of violence, particularly against women who were vulnerable or maybe challenged him in some way, it started so early with Brenda and Alice Stock, and it just continued right through to his victims in Oregon.
The consistency is horrifying. It was set early, and it never really wavered.
And that final silence, it's almost as cruel as the crimes themselves, isn't it?
It really is. It's his last legacy, leaving investigators, families, everyone haunted by these huge unanswered questions.
Like, was he really responsible for Alice Stock's death all those years ago? It seems so likely, but we'll never know for sure.
Exactly. Or were there other victims? In Washington, maybe earlier in Oregon, we just don't know. Because he chose silence, his life story, as horrific as the confirmed parts are. Well, it might only be a fraction of the actual terror he caused. That's the truly haunting part.
If you enjoyed this video and want to dive deeper into more cases like this one, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to like the video if you found the story compelling, and share it with your friends and family who might be interested in true crime and mysteries. By subscribing, you'll stay up to date with all our latest content and join a growing community of curious minds exploring the most fascinating cases. Click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything.